Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel. And we're finally back. My God, I could not handle this international break, honestly. Like, we were done with the first week, not even, and I was like, oh my days, I cannot handle it anymore. And it wasn't even that bad from an Austrian point of view because we actually qualified for the Euros. So go on us. But yeah, international break is always a bit miserable, especially when, as Chelsea seem to do it these days, pretty much every other day is filled with some sort of bad injury news. You're like, oh, this guy's had a setback. Oh, this guy's had a setback. And it's just like, please, for the love of God, can we have good news for once? But we do have good news for once because, as you can see on screen, we are joined by a new guest. Welcoming you onto the channel, Feroz. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it very much. A lot of you will probably know Feroz through various things, work with the club, created obviously the also famous Against All Odds video back in the day, and the new one a couple of years ago, obviously. So Feroz, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it very much. I'll start with a question that's not necessarily aimed at tomorrow, but just generally the position that Chelsea are in, because I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of people, including myself, are kind of weirdly confident ahead of tomorrow, which doesn't really make that much sense when you think about where we've been and where we are, I guess, in terms of injuries, in terms of league position. But somehow I kind of feel confident, even though the last few weeks and months, arguably a year and a half, haven't been great. So how have you, felt this start to the season, Pochettino taking over? It's kind of, Liverpool was okay, then it got a bit bad, and then now we're back on this winning run. It's like, how do you feel about it all?
First of all, I wanted to appreciate you having me. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely.
So thanks for that. And as for this overall season, it's one of the strangest feelings for not just me. I feel like almost every single Chelsea supporter.
Yeah.
With preseason, everyone was super positive that things were clicking, and then obviously we had the horrific injury to Nkunku and all. Yeah. But like for the Liverpool game, same thing. It was all about being positive. We were all optimistic, and then it just went downhill from there. A lot of injuries and just a story for not just last season, but for the last 3-4 seasons where we don't finish our chances. That's what's been happening a lot. And it's like, here we go again. But of course, finally, players are slowly coming back. Things are clicking. And it was sort of weird because I feel like usually during international break, I complain a lot saying, oh no, like no club football. And, when Chelsea did go for international break this time around, I'm like, oh, I don't mind it. However, specifically for this one, it sort of was at the worst time because we were picking up form, right? Mm-hmm. And similar to you, I am optimistic for tomorrow because against big teams, no matter what the form is, we do well. And just having that moment of, I feel like, positivity back along with the players. Knock on wood, Reece is fit for tomorrow fully, but I think he'll get 60 minutes. I think we should be good.
Very good. I like it. I like the positivity. And Pais, I'll come to you. Thank you for coming on, as always, my friend. How have you felt this international break? As usual, I just still never can really believe how they just shoved 3 international breaks in the space of 3 months down our throats. I'm like, for the love of God, let me watch some actual club football. The first one is 3 games into the season. Then it's like another 3 games. Oh, here's another break. Especially when you're not in Europe, like we are obviously this season. There's so few games between these international breaks. It feels like, hello, Clutch. You're certainly not a first-time viewer, but hello, Clutch. But, Pais, do you feel like me and Feroz a bit optimistic ahead of tomorrow, or are you on the other side of the spectrum?
I mean, Feroz is always positive, to be fair, which is good. I mean, I'm less so. I mean, Arsenal, I think, are, I hate to say it, but they are the better team than us right now. I think the good thing about Chelsea is, like, we do better generally, I think, against the bigger teams. And obviously you would say, well, how? Because we haven't, like if you look at our record over, like, the last 2 years, I think our last, win against the top 6 was, ages ago, right? It was, 2022 or something like that, something stupid. Yeah, so obviously we don't win the games, but I generally think we play a lot better against the bigger teams. So, I mean, the midfield battle tomorrow is going to be brilliant. It really is. These are the games, we've signed the players for. Same for Arsenal with Declan Rice, I think that's going to be a key battle in midfield. Probably where the game's won and lost, to be honest. And then obviously, Arsenal's attack is very, very good. I hate to say it, but Saka is unbelievable. and they do cause a lot of threat. But saying that, we've defended pretty well this season. We've got one of the best defensive records. And even at times last season, we defended all right, so it's a bit of a weird one. It may be a case of like us cancelling each other out and it ends in a draw. I would bite your hand off for that right now, but we'll see how we do. I know we've got a couple of injury concerns. I think even Jackson's undergoing like a late assessment, so Broja's out. So I mean, we may not even have a striker tomorrow, but it'll be a good test for us to see where we're at. I think, and
Absolutely.
it'll be a test to us to see like how much of like the last 3 games was actual like, okay, we're getting better now, and we're actually we're kind of doing this mini resurgence, or is it like, okay, we just beat teams we were really expected to beat? So that's what I'm interested to see tomorrow. I'm like, okay, how good are we actually? You know what I mean? So because I thought we played pretty well against Liverpool, but again, we played them first game of the season. Like, it's not a great indicator. They didn't have a DM then, so it's going to be a really interesting game, to be honest. But I'm not as confident as you two, for sure. I'm worried a little bit, but I guess going into it a bit pessimistic, always room to be surprised.
And I hear that, and it's not even like, if you ask me what makes you optimistic, why are you optimistic? It's not like I could give you a good explanation or a good reason. It's just, going into a game, you have a little gut feeling, and this time that's a bit more of a positive one. The part I don't know is, does the positive feeling in my gut mean we will get a draw and I'm happy with that because of where we've been for the last year and a half, or does that mean we will win? I don't know, because, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will have seen those stats as well, Mauricio Pochettino in his managerial career has never actually lost a home game to Arsenal in the league. I think that maybe, I'm not sure if it's all competitions, winning 3, drawing 3. The caveat to that is Arsenal have also not lost a London derby since May 2022 or March 2022, something like that. So a while back. So really, this game has kind of got a draw written all over it, because Arsenal apparently don't lose London derbies at the moment, and Pochettino doesn't lose to Arsenal. So we're going to draw. But let's hope it's a bit more interesting than that. Feroz, did I hear you right that you were saying Reece is fully fit and ready for 60 minutes? Is that what you said?
That I heard that somewhere. And
okay.
like either way, I'm fine with Gusto coming back too, right? Perfect time. That was my main concern, because even though Cucurella has been decent, we needed like a proper right back for this game, especially defending against those wingers. So, hopefully there are no injuries to anyone from our squad tomorrow. That's what I'm praying for.
That's what we're all praying for. I mean, let's talk about the injury situation. There's a few more to talk about. I mean, we've had, during the international break, had a few, like I touched on already earlier, a few of these setback situations. Carney Chukwuemeka's knee apparently hurt again, which I'm like, well, that's not ideal. He had surgery. Now his knee hurts again. That's not great. Trevoh Chalobah has seemingly had his second setback since getting injured out in pre-season. I can't remember the game he got injured in, but he got injured one of the earlier games in pre-season. No one thought he was particularly bad. And then another setback. And now he's got another setback. And God knows when he's ever going to be back. I found the report from Fabrizio Romano during the international break funny, because he was like, well, it's basically been decided Chalobah will leave Chelsea in January because he wants minutes. I'm like, the dude's been injured all season. It's not like he could have had minutes, even if, even if we would have given them to him, he couldn't have had minutes because he's permanently injured at the moment. So that's not great. On top of that, Romeo Lavia has also had a setback in his injury recovery, where we still don't fully know what the injury is. He's now expected back late November, maybe even December. Who knows? Will the guy ever play for Chelsea? I don't know. But as you can see on screen in today's press conference, Pies touched on it already in terms of Broja. Unfortunately, Broja seems to have irritated his other knee. So not the knee that he tore his ACL on 10 months ago, the other knee is now irritated. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. Did it happen against Burnley? Did it happen on international duty, which he traveled to Albania, joined up with the squad, but then left before they played again? And it was like apparently all in like conversation between Albania's doctors and the Chelsea doctors. But now he's out, which I don't fully understand, especially because not long ago I was told like he's fine, essentially. So I'm like, did something happen since that kind of aggravated his knee? But it doesn't sound like a serious thing. So that's at least something. Reece James, Feroz just touched on, apparently also had a setback in injury, but like 10, 12 days ago now. It was reported by Nathan Gissing a couple of days ago, which is why he apparently was supposed to be back for Burnley already, but then obviously was suspended anyway, so wouldn't have been. So no one's really sure about exactly the situation. We'll talk about, would we play him, would we not? We'll get into that later. Also, Axel Disasi first was not called up to the French national team. Then Koundé got injured. Then Disasi was called up, but then actually was like, actually, Disasi's injured. And we were like, is he even injured? Is he not? Who knows? Now it's a late assessment. He's been training, but let's see. And Nicolas Jackson, to top it off, sorry for the waffle. I'll get the boys' thoughts in just a second. Nicolas Jackson had hand surgery. So he also joined up with the Senegalese national team. And before they ever got to any games, he left the national team again and had surgery. I'm like, why did you join up in the first place then? I'm very confused by both of these things. Late assessment again. Badiashile, though, positive news. Been involved in full training, might make the bench, according to Pochettino, and both Enzo and Caicedo should and are ready, obviously, after traveling quite far from South America after the international break. I'll go with you first, Pys. On tomorrow's topic, Broja, James, Disasi, Jackson. Bit strange, isn't it? Like, Jackson obviously got injured in that game against Brighton, but kept playing, then he was subbed off, blah, blah, blah. Played with a normal, bandaging anyway, around his hand against Burnley. Seemed okay. Got surgery, and now we need a late assessment. So, what is this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's, I wouldn't be surprised if something comes out in 15 minutes, someone else is injured. It does feel like that at the moment. It's very annoying. But yeah, I mean, tomorrow, I just hope as many of these guys are as fit as possible. Like Chukwuemeka as well. He's obviously suffered a setback. So it's like, what are they actually doing in training? It's so annoying. I think Pochettino said in the press conference, like, we're trying the best we can. Like, it's also about the history of certain players' injuries, which is fair enough. But like, players that are getting injured are also like some of the signings we've made that don't have an injury history. So it's like, what is actually going on? So yeah,
Wasn't it Disasi who's never had an injury before?
I know it's crazy. I think Badiashile was relatively injury free, and he's obviously coming back now, probably on the bench tomorrow. So I mean, what can you really say? We're at a point now where like it's just like, okay, another one sort of thing. Like, it doesn't ever seem to get better, and I'm just fully adjusted to like the next bad news coming out, because nothing ever seems to get better. Like, will we ever have like even a month period where we have like everyone fit? Because our squad is really good where everyone's fit, but no one is always all fit. You know what I mean? So it's really annoying for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, I'm not sure if you necessarily know more about the situation from inside the club or anything. That's not what I'm asking you. But where do you stand on the whole injury situation? Like Pys just touched on, Pochettino explained today, it's not all just bad luck. Sometimes it is, like he said, in terms of the history of their own injuries, is it the specific injury? Are they just in general prone to injuries? Where do you stand on all this? Because my problem is less so the initial injuries. My problems are the constant setbacks. Because that, to me, like, you can't necessarily always avoid every initial injury. It happens. It's football. It's sport. That's what it is. But unless they're just telling us this season, the new ownership, the way we do things, they're just telling us about these setbacks. And back in the day, we just didn't get told about these things. But to me, it's like I touched on with Chalobah, the second setback in what should be a simple hamstring injury. How can that happen? Reece James now hasn't had a setback as such, but had a small setback apparently 10 days ago or 12 days ago now. And with the injury record he's had, I'm like, how can this keep happening? Carney Chukwuemeka has surgery. Now his knee hurts. I'm not saying that's unheard of, and no one's ever had knee surgery and their knee hurts after. But Carney Chukwuemeka is 20 years old. Like, if he can't heal his body, who can? Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's all strange. And I've thought about this so many times, and we've chatted about this many times on these streams as well. There is obviously no real answer to the question. But it really annoys me. It really gets under my skin that I'm like, we have a good team, but we just cannot for the life of us show that we have a good team. And that's basically been the case for what feels like 3 years straight. And it's just so frustrating. I'm like, yeah, we've been bad, but we haven't been as bad as things look in terms of finishing 12th last season, in terms of everything else that's going on. But because we always have our best players injured, we can never show that we are actually half decent. And it's just really getting on my nerves. So where do you stand on all this? And do you think it's a medical staff problem? Is it a Poch, new manager that's much more focused on fitness compared to last season where we were apparently not fit enough? Where do you think it all comes from, man?
Now, like, you nailed it on the head. I feel we, like us fans, are just immune to this because the last few seasons, even with just recent Ben Chilwell, when those two were fit, we did good. That's just how it was. And the second they got injured, everything just fell apart. Now we have all this talent. The squad is so talented when they're fit. Keyword, when, right? It just seems like luck has played a horrible part. And last month, obviously, I had a lot of questions about the injury situation, and obviously, a few things happened here and there. But these are all like opinions of people, right? You just don't know if this is down to bad luck or if the new physios and stuff are they like. It's just a realistic conversation, and it happens time and time again with Reese and these. I hate to say it, injury-prone players. Fair enough, you can sort of understand some players just have horrible luck with injuries. Obviously, it can be a muscle injury or contact. It all depends. Like, even though Neymar doesn't play for us, just look at his luck for injuries. But the fact that we have like 10 to 12 players, besides United, I can't think of any club this happens to right now. So it's a fair conversation. We will, I feel like, never get an answer, unfortunately. But it's a conversation for sure that needs to be had, right? Because it's one of those things where bad luck is one thing, but happening every single time, it's just something doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And I stand in exactly the same spot because now I understand the Saudi League is lesser the intensity is lesser, training is probably of a lesser intensity. But N'Golo Kante for what is his name? Al Ittihad, is it?
I think
Ittihad, maybe? I forget the names of the Saudi clubs.
I don't blame you.
There you go. It's not my expertise. Regardless, he's played, I think, the last 9 or 10 games in a row. Last season at Chelsea, he played 6 games all season. Like, again, lower intensity. He did have that surgery last year, so that should help him and stuff. But still, when I see he comes back for us, plays 2 games, injured again, and now he plays 9 games in a row for them, even with less intensity, I'm like, how is that? How is that possible? I mean, Pais, I know I've asked you this many a times, but I have to ask you again because it doesn't stop. And the worrying thing for me is that, okay, now Poch said it's not just down to bad luck, but it still just doesn't seem like there's any sort of admittance or like statements from the club in terms of, we are aware this is an issue. We are trying to solve it. Now, they might be doing that behind the scenes, absolutely. And they might just not be informing the public. But they've changed the entire medical staff compared to what it was under the old ownership. Brought one of them back on a 1-day-a-week basis because between us sacking him, or releasing him, I should say, and trying to rehire him, we found a new jobs and he only had 1 day a week spare, which is when we always fly him in from Italy, as far as I'm aware. So because the players demanded one of the old physios back. I'm like, this all seems like a bit of a mess. And I'm not saying it's all on the new medical staff because we clearly had the problems beforehand as well. But what you can say is it certainly didn't get better. So clearly these owners are very adamant on doing everything perfect. When things aren't working, we change it to a certain extent, obviously, to certain limits. But they don't seem to be doing that in this injury department, in the medical department. So the whole thing is just a confusing situation. As well as, though, I know Ferro said in terms of there's no other club that is hit as bad as us, except potentially Man United, and you're right with that, even though I would still say that all of football is kind of hit with a lot of injuries, more than I feel like is normally the case. Now, during the international break, I think the Netherlands were missing 12 players due to injury. My own country, Austria, where we were like missing 8 or 9 players and some of the best ones as well. So it seems like it's a problem for a lot of clubs, countries, just players. But I don't see where the explanation comes from. Like, we can't purely blame the World Cup last year, can we? Because otherwise, when did we last add games to the calendar? Like, everyone always talks about how we play way too much, and I get that. But when did we last add games? The Champions League has been the same since, 1993 or whatever it is? The Premier League has had, 38 games since the 90s. Like, the League Cup has been here the whole time. The FA Cup has been here the whole time. If anything, they scrapped some replays. They scrapped extra time and go straight to penalty shootouts. If anything, they have made it a bit better. Now, people can talk about Nations League, but the Nations League only replaced friendlies. Now, okay, the intensity is maybe a bit higher. But have you watched Nations League? Do any of these nations feel like they care that much? Like, is the intensity really that much higher than in the friendlies that the international teams always used to play? I don't know. So, to me, there's no real explanation for this happening. How can it be all of football? But this is probably it. Football has just changed because your likes of Pep, but also your De Zerbis, your clubs, the football intensity has just gotten harder. But then we were told our team wasn't fit enough last season, so surely that can't be the case of Chelsea then, because, like, I mean, maybe the games were more intense, but if the games are more intense, why is the team less fit? Like, surely just playing the games in itself should make you fit enough, no? I'm going on a tangent, I know, but Pais, where do you stand on those? We need to do something about it. We can't just, we're in the third season straight where we just have 8, 9, 10, 12 injuries constantly. Like, we can't, imagine this happens for the next 10 years. We will never have a good team. Do you know what I mean?
I think we've tried to do something about it and nothing's got better. Like, they've changed the medical staff. Changing coaches has not made anything better. Maybe Pochettino obviously is known to in the past have like quite a strict training routine, a lot of fitness, a lot of running. Maybe that's not helping things, and maybe we're rushing players back as well, because if you think about it, like the amount of players that like return to training and then do something and then they're set back, it's almost like they're being brought back in too early. Like, they're not ready to go into full team training. They're not ready to go into that environment that they have maybe under Pochettino. So I think probably lack of communication between all departments. I think players as well behind the scenes, they're probably using their own people because they don't probably trust the new people, because the club got rid of the old people that they liked. So it's like, they're probably getting told different things and doing different regimes behind the scenes as well. If I were to have a guess, at things with their own like personal trainers and stuff. Like, I think, like with Mudryk, like apparently Chelsea had to tell him, like they've told him to stop doing so much gym work because he's always with his personal trainer. Like, they would only know that if Mudryk, filmed it, which he does. Like, his personal trainer films and all that. Like, these players could be doing different stuff behind the scenes, like with
he might be with his personal trainer at Cobham, though.
I don't think it is.
After
like, if you see the gym at Cobham, it's different.
It's not at Cobham.
It's not at Cobham. It's it looks completely different to what you see there. So
that's true, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just think a lack of control, lack of communication, and just there's no like one set answer. It's like a load of things mixed in a bowl, and then there you have the final outcome, which is just shite. So yeah,
exactly. I mean, maybe what we need to do is go back to Conte days and ban ketchup and things like that. Like Joey Acne is saying, it must be the new world order, fake food affecting everyone. I mean, it might be, but then I'm like, these are the absolute pinnacle of athletes that you get. We are Chelsea Football Club, one of the biggest, best clubs in the world. You'd think we'd have enough nutritionists, enough bloody sports scientists, all sorts of things to avoid injury as best as possible. And then I look at Thiago Silva, being 39 years old. When he is injured, he comes back faster than everyone else. He is also never like normally. He doesn't have muscle injuries, not a thing for Thiago Silva. Has he, since he's joined Chelsea, has he ever had a muscle injury? I don't know. He had a knee injury last season, but it's a knee injury, contact injury, and he was still back fit quicker than anybody else was. So then when I think about it that way, it does make me question it a little bit. I'm like, well, how does 39-year-old Thiago Silva manage to stay fit, but no one else does? Is it preparation? Is it how they take care of their bodies? I genuinely don't know. But I want to finish this with one last question. It kind of hints on to going into our team already, but I want to ask it now anyway, and I'll start with you, Feroz. How do you stand on bringing players back? Because obviously Reece James has had a lot of issues with injuries. So you're like, that makes you feel, okay, let's not rush him back. But then at the same time, he did all of pre-season, played against Liverpool, got injured. So I'm like, it's clearly not, it doesn't seem to matter that much in a case of Reece of, he's not given enough time off or whatever. That doesn't seem to be the issue, in my opinion anyway, the way it seemed. If you can do all of pre-season and a tough pre-season on a Poch, I assume, and stay fit through all of that, but then get injured in the first game, I don't think you can just say, he hasn't been given enough time. So now, again, I'm no doctor. I'm not this physio. I don't know how he is right now. But I just don't know in this situation. I'm like, is there even any benefit in not playing him? Isn't he equally as likely to get injured again if we play him next week against Brentford instead? Do you know what I mean? So where do you stand on bringing players back in after injuries? Do it quickly, do it like off the bench, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, only then start? Especially if they're important players like a captain. It's it's difficult. And I understand it's difficult for managers as well to make those decisions. But where do you stand on that, and what would you do with these types of players?
Yeah, with Reece, it's tricky because even before preseason, he wasn't like there was like last minute news that he might not make it to preseason as well. And I get that, the fact that whether he plays or not, people are like he's still going to get injured regardless. However, I feel like because we signed Gusto, but bear his red card, he's done a really good job. And for situations like this, you know what, just ease Reece in, even though he's going to be super determined to play. But right now, someone like him, probably our most important player, like no bias aside, I generally think we really need to be super cautious after all this, even more, right? And I feel like the fact that we have Gusto back, who's done well, and we signed him for a reason because we have like a like-for-like replacement for Reece in him. So just ease the rest back, especially Reece. That's what I would do,
Yeah, I probably agree. It's just, like I say, I'm sat there, I'm like, yeah, that's what we should do. Absolutely. Play him maximum 15 minutes tomorrow. Maybe play him half an hour against Brentford. Maybe start him against Blackburn in the cup when it should be a little bit easier. But what if he gets injured against Blackburn anyway? I mean, then you're like, then it was all for nothing, really. And then you're like, might as well have played him an hour against Arsenal then. I mean, Peters made an interesting point here. Now, first he started off by saying, as soon as we went to a wing-back formation, the injuries went up threefold. I'm not sure if it's necessarily tied to the formation, but I get where you're coming from. But then he says squad size has been huge. Now, it's been taken down, obviously, a lot now, but still, I get your point. He says, are the players getting enough treatment? Are they also getting enough work? Now, enough work, I don't think that's an issue, but enough treatment, if you have a huge squad, did we have enough physios for all of the players last season? I don't know. No, we might have done. So I'm not going to criticize the club for not having it, but there is a possibility we didn't, because clubs aren't usually... they're not run to have 35 first-team members. The clubs aren't aimed for that. That's why we didn't have enough spaces in the bloody changing room. But, Pais, do you see it like for us in terms of, especially Reece, you need to bring back slowly? Or are you like, well, it doesn't really matter when you bring him back. He's going to get injured, so you might as well bring him back straight away?
Kind of the second one, to be honest. Like, everyone's like, don't rush him back. It's like, you're just saying that because you're scared he's going to get injured, but he's going to get injured anyway, probably. Like, say we didn't play him against Arsenal, right? Say we didn't play him against Blackburn, he comes back. We give him an extra break. Like, there's still a big chance he gets injured just because the way he is. He's injury prone, unfortunately. He pulls muscles easy. The way his game is as well, he's constantly bombing back and forward. So, he does play a high intensity game. And, I don't really believe the theory of just don't rush him back. Don't rush him back because what is rushing him back now? Like, honestly, it's just, I don't know. Like, you also have to take the player's word as well. Like, if they say they're ready, then, it's like the medical staff are going to say to Pochettino, okay, he's ready because he's told us that. Like, you go off the player's word and so... But players may also, lie because they really want to play. So it's like they may think they're ready, but they're not the doctor. So it's like, but nowadays, don't you think like the players get more authority over like the doctors? Like if they've got their word in, they're the person at the end. They're the player. So it's like it's really difficult to know when you're rushing someone back. I would say as well.
No, exactly. I agree. And like, what is rushing back is rushing. I think rushing back is much more of an issue, rushing them back into full training than it is into games. Because if you can handle they'd never play without doing a few days full training. So if you can handle full training, if we train properly, which I expect we do under Pochettino, then it's not that different from games. Now it's still different, especially in the middle of a season, but it's not that different. So if you can handle full training, you should handle full games to a certain limit of time, right? Obviously, don't play 90 minutes straight away, but seemingly the issue that we have more than anything is bringing players into training and then they have setbacks. I think that's more of an issue. But hey, there you go. One positive, though, because he hasn't been mentioned by anybody, Cole Palmer seems to be fit because obviously he picked up some sort of small knock on his thigh, on his quadriceps during international break. Didn't play the second game for the England under-21s, but he hasn't been mentioned by anybody to be an issue, and he hasn't been mentioned by Chelsea on like their injury report. So that at least seems to be a positive thing, and he should be back fit. Let me bring that up by Chelsea quickly. The injury update ahead of Arsenal, where the players to be assessed are not on there, but the fully injured ones, I guess, are in terms of Broja, like we touched on. irritation on the left knee following international duty, which I find interesting because the way Silvinho, the Albania manager, made it sound, didn't sound like anything happened on international duty. So I don't know what's happened there. Trevoh Chalobah, we discussed. Carney Chukwuemeka, we discussed. Just a shame because we thought he'd be back. Like there was talk about that he could have even been back against Burnley. And now, obviously, we know where we are. Ben Chilwell, Fofana, and Nkunku, we all obviously know about. And we touched on Romeo Lavia, unfortunately, suffering a bit of a setback as well. But let's talk about tomorrow. We're facing Arsenal. They are currently, second in the league, but joint top with Tottenham. They finished obviously second last season. We're in this title race. How do you feel going into this game? I'll go with you first, Feroz. Has the game Arsenal against Chelsea, has it changed? Is it different to what it was a couple of years ago? Are we the drastic underdog now? Like, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because when I watch Arsenal play, yeah, they're good, but it doesn't feel the same as when I watch City and when I'm like, except the last 3 games, obviously, when they didn't have Rodri and De Bruyne and they can't do nothing. And City might even lose another one with Brighton this weekend. But how do you feel like we have to approach this game? Because, like I say, usually for the last decade or more, we were the big dog. We were the guys going into it, expecting to win, demanding from ourselves to win. Is the game a bit different now? And does that mean we are going to approach it differently? Should we, in your opinion, try to control the ball, control possession? Or should we be a bit more cautious, sit back and use the pacey players that we have, your Jacksons, your Mudryk, your Sterlings, and be a bit more aggressive from the break? How do you think we should approach the game to give ourselves the best chance of winning?
Yeah, this is a weird one because obviously a few seasons ago we were the favorites, right, all the time. And now it's like the tide has sort of shifted, but I feel the same with you in terms of Arsenal. Even though they were really good last season, I just, when we play City, I get scared. For Arsenal, I still have that, it being a London derby, plus it's going to be one of those games where I feel like the players are going to be determined. And the way Poch plays, he loves possession. He just loves it. Even against City or any other team, I feel like we're going to dominate in terms of just keeping the ball, playing with the ball and stuff, and they're going to play on the counter. The key thing is we have to take our chances. That's the thing that really separates us from the best. It's one of those things where when you look at law of averages, it's weird how we just don't finish our chances, right? And then the conversation comes about like us not having a clinical striker, but tomorrow we probably might not even have a striker on the field, right? So I feel like that's a key factor if like Sterling plays false 9 and then Mudryk can start on the left side. So that depends also, because obviously if you don't have a striker, no focal point, that does affect the way we play, even though Sterling and Mudryk both are in form, and obviously we have Palmer to make those passes. So that will be a proper, I feel like, decision in terms of how we will play. But I still think it'll be one of those games where we dominate and it'll finish 1-1, and we won't play like negative football, right? I hear when people call it negative football, but it'll be a much more attacking based game, I feel.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. We're at the bridge where I think it's going to be a pretty even split in terms of possession, probably. At the same time, I say that in these games that we've now won against Brighton, against Fulham, and against Burnley. Now, Burnley a little bit less so because of who they are. But against Fulham and Brighton, we had less possession. And that's when we all of a sudden won. So maybe actually we won't have 50% roughly, because maybe it's better for us not to. I mean, Pais, how do you see that one? Like I touched on, similar question to what I put to Feroz, really. Has the scale of the game, or how we approach the game, has it changed because of where Arsenal are as a club at the moment and where we are? Or do you feel it's still the same because it's a one-off game with Chelsea against Arsenal? It doesn't really matter where you are in the table and what happened last season.
How am I supposed to answer this question?
Just how you feel like we should approach the game, and how will we approach the game? Like, are we going into it as an underdog? Should we treat it as going into it as an underdog? Or should we do the opposite and we don't care that we're 11th. We don't care that we finished 12th last season. We're still going to be the big dog. We're at home. No matter who you are, we're beating you. What approach should we take? What's the best way to go into this game? Like I say, Arsenal has been good for a good while now.
Yeah, I think with Arsenal, I think they generally suffer the most against teams that go head to head with them and that are a good enough quality to consistently, keep the ball, test their defense as well. Like they've got Ben White and Zinchenko usually as their fullbacks. Like Zinchenko likes to invert into midfield, so maybe we play a couple of pacey wingers tomorrow and just get out them. Really, I think that's probably the best way to do it. I'd try and score the first goal and then I'd sit off them and try and counter them from there because I trust our defensive ability. It's just, I don't know for a full 90 minutes if we can go head to head with them just yet. Like, I feel like they'll definitely finish their chances better than we do. They're way more clinical. We've got better clinical players. But yeah, I think, I keep going back to the midfield. I think that's going to be such an important area of the pitch. In the big games, usually that's where it's won and lost. Obviously, we have Enzo and Caicedo, but to have Rice Odegaard is so good, and who knows who else they're going to play. So I think team selection is going to be really interesting on Arsenal's end. I'm really looking forward to and nervous to see their team, but yeah, I mean, I just go at them, to be honest, from minute one. Don't be scared of them. What's there to be scared about? They're a very good team, but they're beatable. So yeah, it's a London derby. I think the fans are going to be behind us. So as long as we don't concede early, I think we can definitely give them a really good game. So I wouldn't like sit off them from minute one though. I'd definitely have a go at them and then just take the game in periods. Like just see how it goes for the first 15 minutes, get to 30, see where we're at. See how well we match up against them because. In these type of games as well, it's who gets tactics better, right? Who brings on the better subs at the right time? Who changes something, to change the game. So it's always fine margins in the big games. It really is. So yeah, knowing that Poch doesn't like to make subs does make me a bit worried, to be honest. But we'll see.
Yeah, that is always a bit worrying. And that's another thing on the whole injury topic. Like because of when COVID happened, we introduced 5 instead of 3 subs, but it didn't exactly make anything better. Now, I'm not saying it just made anything worse. I'm more saying it's gotten worse despite going up to 5 subs, which kind of shows how drastic the problem is. But I've brought up Arsenal's lineup in their last game, 4-0 victory over Bournemouth. Now, as we touched on, or actually we might have touched on this before we went live. So Saka and Saliba are both a doubt, but according to Arteta, they both want to play. So let's see what happens there. Maybe Saliba starts, Saka comes off the bench, but Saka until the other week had basically had a 100% record of never missing a Premier League game through injury. So I feel like he's probably going to play. But when you look at that, and I'll stick with you first, Pais, before going to Feroz. When you look at Arsenal's team, and again, obviously there might be small changes to it. Martinelli might play, Jesus might be up top, and KTM might come out, whatever else. What are the parts of their team that scare you, and what are the parts of their team that you're like, that's not great? Like, we can attack that. Like, especially when I look at, in the last game, the left side. Zinchenko at left back. Havertz at left centre mid. To me, if you attack down our own attacking right-hand side, and this is their team, we should tear them to pieces down that side. We should. I'm not saying that will happen. But if Zinchenko pushing into midfield, not being the greatest out-and-out defender as it is anyway, and Havertz, who we know all too well about, surely we should destroy them on that side. While on the other hand, Odegaard and Saka terrifies me, especially while who knows who's going to play left back. We'll get into that later. But what parts of their team, like I say, scare you a little bit, Pais, and what parts of it do you think we can take them on and kind of terrify them for, I guess?
I think that point you just mentioned, like, I don't think Havertz is going to start personally, but if it is that midfield 3, then I think down that side is definitely probably their only real weak spot of their team, just because I think it's something that you can attack. And I think when we see the lineup, it'd be very interesting to see because, like, if Cole Palmer plays down that side, you think, okay, less 1v1 threat. But if Reece James also plays and it's James and Palmer, well, you've got Palmer who wants to come inside, and then James is going to overlap. So that's very confusing if you're an Arsenal defender. So that could work. But at the same time, you're like, okay, maybe we push Sterling over there, just have him absolutely run and run and run. Every time he gets the ball, just run at Zinchenko. And he can cause a load of issues if he's on it. Like, easily he can. Like, we've seen this when he's on it. Like, last game, wins a penalty, like, wins fouls, scores goals. So there's different ways we can approach it. And it's fine margins tactically. I'm really interested to see what the lineups are. But when I look at their team, I mean, obviously Saka is a fantastic player. If Colwill plays left back against Saka, it might be GG's, guys. I like Colwill, but it might be GG's. Like, honestly, Saka is he's going to tear him a new one. I'm afraid. I really do fear that. And the other player that I'm really worried about is Odegaard. Odegaard is so good. Like, every time I watch Arsenal, he's so good, man. Like, his passing, his vision, his shooting. If we give him a chance to shoot outside the box, it's probably going in. So yeah, they're the main threats for me. Jesus is a good player, but I'd be more scared about like what he does to link up the play rather than like finishing in front of goal, because if he plays, then he's going to drop deep and maybe like our centre backs come out too far and then they find gaps and stuff like that. I'm a bit worried about that, but other than that, I think Saliba as well is just an exceptional defender. He really is. He's amazing. So they've got some solid players in their team. I still think Gabriel's got a mistake in him. I don't know why Arsenal fans rate him so highly, but yeah, I think he's got a mistake in him. So yeah, I would say
I would also add to it, by the way, Raya, in my opinion, has a mistake in him. And especially with their goalkeeping situation in general, not necessarily that I think Raya is that bad, but because of I just don't think they're in this healthy situation. Like they were all right with Ramsdale. I'm not saying he was the best, but they had a clear number one goalkeeper. They finished second. It was definitely not down to the goalkeeper that they didn't win the league last year. And all of a sudden, Arteta wants to add Raya. A couple of games in, he takes Ramsdale out. Raya plays, and Raya's made a fair few mistakes. I feel like since coming into the team. So I feel like that pressure, keeping your spot, almost overly wanting to do well, especially in such a big game. I think maybe that could also be, a bit of a.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one because, like, I'd rather Ramsdale play. Like, I think he's worse. So I think he's got more like mistakes in him. Like, he does more like bozo things than Raya will, in my opinion. Like, I've seen Ramsdale do some stupid things, like how he runs out and like clatters people, and like I don't know. I just don't rate Ramsdale. But yeah,
I agree with you, mate. If Ramsdale plays tomorrow, I think the same thing. But I think it more because they've added this competition there now, which wasn't there last season, and things were working well. So why would you change it? That's the part I don't get, and I think it makes both of them worse. If that makes sense.
Was it the Man City game where Raya was like struggling to play at the back? It was strange because like at Brentford, it was like he was so good at playing from out the back, and now they've got him as the star. It's like they're almost trying to figure out like how. Like the movements and that type of thing. It's new, right? It's only one player, but it's definitely changed things in terms of them playing at the back. So, yeah, that's the only positive with Ramsdale playing for them is that obviously he's played with them for like 2 years now. So it's much more like settled back line. But yeah, I'm looking at that sort of that side where you got Havertz, Zinchenko, Gabriel. I think that's the area we need to attack, and maybe why Reece James does have to start, because down that side he can cause a lot of problems. I don't rate Zinchenko's defending at all. I think he's terrible, but going forward and on the ball he's really good. So it's just it's two solid teams, honestly. It's two solid teams. It's just I think it's like Faro said, it generally will be who finishes the chances. So on that given day, and you go, well, that's going to be Arsenal, but you never know. You never know. Chelsea might score first in 10 minutes and then we might win. We might just hold it out. You never know. Like, we might come back. It's the beauty of football. Like, you can be pessimistic, but you never know what's going to happen on that day. So, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, for Rose, same questions as I put to Pice. When you look at this Arsenal team, and again, there could be changes to it compared to what they used against Bournemouth. What parts scare you? What parts do you think we should attack? Do you see it the same way as seemingly me and Pice do, or have you thought anything else out? Like, for example, in Nketiah or Jesus. Like, Jesus is great, but he's not the biggest goal threat in the world. Like, I feel like they could have certainly invested differently and be a bigger goal threat, in my opinion.
Nah, you guys nailed it. I feel like my biggest concern was Saka versus obviously Levi. I think that's gonna be an interesting situation. But at the same time, it depends who starts for us.
Yeah,
I think us even targeting Ben White, the width of whether it's Mudryk or Sterling, when they run at him, that could be dangerous for them. But other than that, it's like a really weird. It all depends on who starts, right? Like if you have Reece and as obviously Pi said, then Reece and Palmer could be a big threat on that side with Zinchenko and Havertz, and then same thing with Sterling or Mudryk, and obviously. There was a comment I saw where it was like we don't have any aerial threat, right? When we cross it with Reece, so that it's like one of those things where if you don't have a proper striker, This is what I'm concerned about, right? No focal point.
Yeah.
So that is going to be key. But at the end of the day, right, it's going to come down to fine margins, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, right?
It will be, and it will come down to fine margins. And I think that's a good point to take it over into picking our team or picking the team we would like to see. I think it's more so appropriate potentially than the predicted 11, because a lot of it is like, we don't know yet. It's going to be a lot of it. It's going to be down to fitness. So we'll discuss everything. But yeah, I think Joey and yourself, by bringing it up for us, have made an important point. Like, our aerial ability has gone so poor, and I can't just blame it on Jackson, because I think that is a bit simple. Sure, from open play, that's valid, but from set pieces, it's not. Like, it's still weird. Like, Disasi is massive in the air, but even when we play a good corner, we never seem to get any end of it. And I'm not trying to blame any of individual. As a collective, it's just not working, because defensively, our aerial stats are strong. It's just offensively, they're not. So yeah, it's not ideal, especially when you are going into games as the slight underdog. It's not ideal when your chances from like set pieces aren't the best, purely because you are not that great at them. That's when you are, like I say, the underdog, not ideal. Like, even remember back to that 15-16 season under Jose, where we were like nearly in the relegation zone before he got the sack. We still beat Arsenal. And what happened? Kurt Zouma scored from a corner. Do you know what I mean? How likely are we to score from a corner tomorrow? I feel like likelihood is pretty much zero. Now, I hope to be proven wrong, of course, but it just doesn't feel like that's what's going to happen. But anyway, let's get into the team that we would like to see, and we can just discuss. That's what we like. That's what we think Poch will do. We'll just go through it as the cookie crumbles, as people say. We start in goal. It's kind of self-explanatory, really. It's not going to be Petrovic all of a sudden after not having played yet, but it's going to be Robert Sanchez, who, to be fair to him, I was critical of the signing when the signing was made, not necessarily because I thought Sanchez was bad, but because I felt, is he really better than Kepa? I still am not 100% sure on that. They just have different strengths, but what I am feeling at the moment is that the strength Sanchez have might be better for us than the strengths Kepa has, if that makes sense, because even though he has his bozo moments in him, the penalty against Wimbledon, sometimes he passes it straight to the opponent for absolutely no reason. But the way he collects almost every cross makes such a difference to us. It's unbelievable. It makes us counter better. It makes us be less susceptible to permanent pressure. Like, when teams try to just pressure us in, cross, no one catches it. The goalie can hold it and stop it. If we just head it clear, they might get it again. Another cross. It's just this permanent pressure. And I think that's what Sanchez helps us a lot with recovering from. And he's also so far made a lot of great saves. So fair play to him. I assume, Feroz, you're going to be in agreement with Sanchez, not like Petrovic is going to get the goal. But as I have you here, thoughts on Sanchez so far in his first few months at Chelsea?
Yeah, he surprised me. I wasn't too over optimistic about that signing, but he's done a good job. A lot of games he has been our man of the match. It's weird saying that for a goalkeeper, and he has his odd moments here and there. Where I go like, why are you doing that? But in terms of like crosses, I'm just so confident he's going to collect every ball, so that helps. Plus, a big pro is the fact that when someone shoots right from outside the box, I'm not that concerned. Whereas with Kepa, as much as I liked him, that was one thing where everyone just took a shot, right? And sometimes just went in. It was one of those things where now I'm like, fair enough. We have a decent goalkeeper, and it helps, our defenders and everyone else, that we should not be too worried about like long shots or some bizarre goals. So for sure, Sanchez has done a decent job so far.
There you go. Pais, I know you were more than most Chelsea fans actually positive about signing Sanchez. Do you feel vindicated by his performances so far, in your opinion, at the beginning?
Yeah, I think he's done decent. Don't think he's been amazing, but he's definitely exceeded some people's expectations. I mean, I thought he'd be decent for us. I thought he'd be solid at the time. I always said I think he's solid Premier League goalie. It was only not long ago he was considered to be one of the most solid in the Premier League. So yeah, I mean, he's been good. He's had a couple of like bozo moments, as you said, but overall, I think on the ball, overall he's been very good. And as you said, the cross collecting and stuff like that, just seems more like, I feel more like assured with him in that. If that makes sense, I think. Yeah, he's just I don't know. He's just been solid. There's not really much else to say. He's been solid, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Other than when he gets pressed and he tries to pass it out low from the back. A little bit concerned then, but otherwise, I agree. And fair play to him, to be honest.
I wanted Onana. I was so wrong about that.
So did I, bro. Don't worry. I did rage tweets when we didn't get on.
So glad we got Sanchez instead.
To be fair, I was not one of those that wanted Onana, but I didn't think he'd be anywhere near as bad as he has been for Man United either. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, look at me, I knew all along. No, I had no idea it would end up like this. I will be perfectly honest. What I didn't ask either of you guys yet, by the way, are we both all in agreement that we should stick to the same formation, that kind of 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, whatever you want to call it? Because, well, it's Caicedo's the deepest, then you have Enzo here, and then it's like, is Gallagher a 10 or is he an 8? A bit of both. Do you think we should stick with that? Because Mason here in the chat has just said he would switch to a back 5. Would you at all entertain that for us, or do you think we should stick with what has gotten us 3 wins in a row now? Like, why change that?
Yeah, no, why fix something that's not broken, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we should just stick with as things are. I get it. Arsenal playing at the 5 will be more safe, but now let's just don't change it up again and again, because that was the biggest complaint, because with preseason you went one way and then switched it up and then back and forth. Let's just stick with this. That's how I feel.
Exactly. I agree. And also I will say, do we even have 3 available centre-backs? We are not sure about that. So the whole back 5 thing, I'm not even sure how possible that is. But Pais, I assume you agree, stick to the formation rather than changing to anything crazy?
Yeah, I'd stick formation for sure.
There you go. Fair enough. Pais, I'll stick with you and go with you first. Centre-back 2. Like I say, we don't know about Axel Disasi. And obviously, Axel Disasi's fitness kind of dictates, well, it may not theoretically. It could be Disasi and Chilwell, regardless of, or it could be Thiago Silva and Chilwell, regardless of Disasi's fitness. But Cliva Chilwell has obviously been playing at left-back a lot. The last couple of games, it was also Marc Cucurella at right-back. With Disasi's questionable fitness, what do you then do with the back 4? Like, again, you could just say, oh, let's hope he's fit and then let's pretend. So let's just pretend he's not, just to make it more interesting what we would do. Because if he's fit, then it's probably the same as before Gusto got the red card, realistically. But what would you do if, say, Disasi is out? You can also tell me what you would do if he isn't.
Is this like our team or predicted? Because...
Well, more your team, but just explain both if there are differences.
Okay, so are we doing the whole back 4 or centre backs?
Well, you can do the whole back 4 if it makes sense that way.
Okay, so predicted, I'll go Cole left back, centre backs of Silva and Disasi with Gusto.
What if we pretend that Disasi just isn't fit? Or do you think he is fit?
No, he is fit. I don't know where did you get that from? I think he is fit. You're worrying me now.
Well, he is one of those guys that was said to be late assessments.
I don't know. He's been in training for a few days, isn't he? So
he has, but like Poch just said, James Disasi and Jackson will be late assessments. That's all I can.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Okay, fair enough. Let's not pretend he's injured then. If we're this confident, fair enough. Let's go.
I'm confident he'll be fine.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then right back?
Gusto.
Oh, wow.
This is predicted, by the way. This is predicted.
Okay, just quickly run me through what you would do different.
Right, so this might shock some people, but I've got Cucurella at left back.
Yeah.
I've got Colwell and Disasi and then James. Because I think Cucurella can stay back more and allow James to go forward.
I agree with that.
I don't want, and even Cucurella can even do like a little bit of Zinchenko, come in midfield. It's not going to happen, but I just don't want
Colwell, to be fair. That part Colwell can do. We're not asking him to, but he could.
Colwell left back for me in this game ain't it at all.
I hear. Can I ask you an honest question? Are you saying that because if Cucurella gets torn a new one, you don't mind that much? Because, but if Colwell gets torn a new one, it's not great.
No, I genuinely think Cucurella is better out wide defending than Colwell. 100%. He's a natural left back.
Ask Mo Salah about Colwell at left back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but he did get that assist at Diaz still. Like,
it is true, but he did also get subbed off. Absolutely furious about getting subbed off.
But Salah is like that though. Like Salah's not like a 1v1 demon, is he? Saka is. So Salah's just very good at like scoring and getting in the right position. Like,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'll keep the predicted on screen for now. We'll after all of us have said what we think should happen, we'll see.
Plus,
What
Cucurella has been playing really good as well. Like, I know it was a right back, but like, doesn't he
Who's playing
deserve
really
to
well,
stay in
sorry?
this team?
Cucurella.
Cucurella's been playing really well.
Yeah, no, he absolutely has, and you could certainly argue that he does deserve some sort of space in the team. But will he be as good on the left as he is on the right, especially in possession? I don't know. For us, if you want to, you can also give me two in terms of what you expect Poch to turn up with, and also what you would do if it does differ. But what would be your back four?
No, I think this will be our back four. And I think Poch will start with this back four as well, both for this. And, it's one of those things where I would have also had the idea of maybe Cucurella on the left, but I think both are equally going to get, I'm not going to say destroyed, but Saka is going to be menaced to both, Colwill and Cucurella. As good as Cucurella has been on the right side, sometimes he's just way too aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. So I think hopefully Colwill is much more conservative and just reads Saka better, but it'll be a challenge for both of them, Hopefully, people just double team and nullify that. But yeah, I'm gonna go for this as well.
There you go. Would it also be what you would pick, or would you personally pick something different?
No, I would pick this as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the only thing was on the right side, Reece. My heart says start Reece no matter what, but it's one of those things where I just want to be super safe because I don't want to go through the same thing again and again where he's out for a long time because you rushed him back for this game.
Exactly, I agree, and like you touched on it earlier, Gusto has done more than good enough of a job before getting that red card, which I still think is at least a questionable red card, considering the on-pitch referee didn't initially give a red card. I think it was not enough to be overturned, in my opinion. The only thing I will say is the whole Colwill situation, why I like what Pais has gone for, just to let me put it on screen quickly, Cucurella left back and then Colwill instead of Thiago Silva. What I like about that is I think, like Feroz said, it's kind of inevitable, regardless of whether it's Colwill or Cucurella. And if Saka is able to play, there will be moments when no matter which one of the two it is, they will get ripped apart and gone past. That will just happen, no matter who it will be. But what I will say is, if it's Cucurella and you have Colwill next to him, I think Colwill is much better suited to then cleaning up, helping out than Thiago Silva is. That's the one thing I will say, and what I agree with Pais with. I don't necessarily agree with the whole idea that Thiago Silva is a defensive problem. I don't agree with that. I think he's maybe a bit of a problem sometimes in playing out because he does things slow, at the 39-year-old man's pace. Fair enough to it. He's earned that right, I suppose. But he still does it differently to, I don't know, bloody Levi Colwill or Ake or Ruben Dias or Stones. They just play out from the back so much quicker. But the thing that I don't like about Colwill at left back is that it's Thiago next to him. Mm-hmm. And then when Colwill does need help, which is natural, any centre-back playing out of position at fullback will at times need a bit of help. That's normal. The problem is when the centre-back next to them is someone that's not good either at having to help out wide. And that's where it worries me. Yeah, but in terms of if we do predict it, I still think this is the most likely. So we're going to leave this on screen. But yeah, those are at least my concerns. If anyone wants to touch on those, please do. But that's where my concern comes from. I mean, Austie asks, why are you dropping Silva? I mean, Pais, you were the first one that stated it. Why are you dropping Silva in your own team?
Height reasons, and I don't think Silva's.
Are Arsenal that tall of a team?
I think they are going at the back and in midfield as well. They're quite tall, especially if Partey plays.
No, I agree. Yeah, in midfield, but in attack, they're not. So
I think Colwill and Disasi is more solid at the moment on form, especially if Colwill plays centre back. Mm-hmm. Also, I want to start building, some sort of partnership here between the long term centre backs. So, yeah, a few different reasons. Would
it at all not be a concern to you playing a partnership together that hasn't played together yet in a game as big as against Arsenal?
No, okay. No, not for me. I think they're good enough together.
Fair dues. All right, we move up to midfield then, and I do want to start with one thing. I know the last couple of games we had it this way. You had Caicedo the deepest, Enzo over there, and then Gallagher here. We'll get to, is it Gallagher here? Is it Palmer here? We'll get to that in a second. Regardless of that, now, if it's Palmer, it's a bit more difficult, but I'm very confident that it will be Gallagher anyway. But I think we need to flip it. And I think we need to flip it so that Caicedo is a bit more on the left than on the right. So it's Caicedo that's on Ødegaard and not Enzo. Because I think it's much more important to make sure Ødegaard doesn't dictate play. And Caicedo is going to be much better at that than Enzo. And I also don't want Enzo busy the whole game dealing with Ødegaard rather than focusing on his own creative input onto our game. So I think, especially if you put Enzo next to Kai, I think, job done, really. I would just flip it. Like, I'm not saying Caicedo is now here, but obviously because it's this mix of 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1, when they then do drop in as a 2, then I would prefer Caicedo to be the left one and Enzo to be the right one, so Caicedo can deal more with Ødegaard. Yeah, that's my point I wanted to make. So I'm taking that executive decision. If we're picking those 3, I'm putting them in that order. But obviously, give me your thoughts on that. Feroz, I'll start with you. Midfield 3 as a whole, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, whichever way you want to look at it. Do you just go with what we had, Caicedo, Enzo, and Gallagher, or do you put Palmer into midfield to put 2 out-and-out wingers on the pitch?
Ooh, this is tricky. This is tricky. Usually, I would actually say play Palmer behind the striker and have the wingers. Mm-hmm. That would mean obviously dropping Conor, but Gallagher has done a really good job. And I think same thing. Why fix something that's not broken? Go with the same 3 and just solidify that. Plus the whole, obviously we're going to discuss this later. We don't know if you're going to have a striker tomorrow, but I think let's just stick with the 3 and play Palmer on the wing. That's how I feel. Because form matters, right? And he has done a phenomenal job, right? So we gotta stick with Conor.
I'll be honest with you, bro. For me, it's honestly, I agree. Gallagher needs to be in the team, especially because of the opponent. Now, if we played a different opponent now and Mudryk and Sterling were in form and I'd want to play both, but I'd not want to drop Palmer, then maybe it's a different situation. But because of who we are playing, I think we should stick with this midfield. But I'm not 1,000,000% sure if I would. We'll touch on Palmer later. We'll get to him. But I have my reasons why I would maybe like a real winger on the right. But we'll get to that. Paisto, midfield 3, do you agree? Or would you drop Gallagher and put Palmer in the middle?
I can see both because, Palmer could, obviously offer more creativity. But then again, Gallagher, you could put on Declan Rice and just have him hunt him down constantly because that's going to be their build-up phase. So, oh my God, this is really difficult. In my team, I'll go Palmer there because I do think this is where he should be playing instead of out wide. But I think Gallagher will play. I'll go with Palmer especially because of the winger reason. I want to get 2 of the wingers in.
Yeah,
I want to get.
And I hear that, and I think we read the same thing that makes us think this because it's a good shout. But as we went with your predicted for the back 4, we'll go with your predicted for the center for the midfield 3 as well. And we move on to the front 3, and to inform Feroz what me and you are probably referring to in terms of the right winger. We kind of touched on it earlier. With Zinchenko being their left back, let's just pretend this is the left back, and rather than playing like a normal left back all the time, or let me do it with Kobo, Zinchenko comes here in build-up and then kind of builds a 2 with Rice like that. And obviously they then shift across, right? With Ben White, not always bombing forward, sometimes still bombing forward, but not always. With that said, if you put a winger, let's pretend this is our winger here, and put them right here on the touchline, Zinchenko won't always be there to fill in and cover that because he will push into midfield in attack. And if we then steal the ball from them and then attack in transition, those spaces will be free. And a real winger, I don't even care if it's, theoretically, we also have Madueke, who we completely forget about nowadays. But not only Sterling, but also theoretically Mudryk in pre-season, he played on the right ones and he was phenomenal at it. Arguably, maybe you should put Mudryk there. Not sure if Ukrainian against Ukrainian will be more in Mudryk's favour or more in Zinchenko's favour. I'm not sure, if I'm honest. But I would like an out-and-out winger here. But it feels really harsh to drop Palmer. So I don't really know what to do. Did you get where we are coming from, Feroz, with that idea that because Zinchenko pushes into midfield, there's more space to exploit, and because Palmer isn't an out-and-out winger, he will naturally come inside and kind of go exactly where Zinchenko is anyway, so make it much easier for Zinchenko to defend. I understand what you touched on earlier, and Pais as well. If then the right back, regardless of if it's Gusto or James, I guess, with a bit more danger or a bit more of a threat, if they push up, I guess you can say it doesn't matter. But we're talking about this will mostly come into effect in transition. Once we attack with structure, Zinchenko will fall back into left back and it won't be a problem. It doesn't matter whether someone's out wide or not. But in transition, it is. So then my question is, will the fullback be up the pitch quick enough to really exploit that? So therefore, I'm thinking an out-and-out winger would be quite good, as harsh as it would feel to drop Palmer. Do you know what I mean?
No. I can definitely. That's why it's like a weird situation where even I was agreeing with Pice. I was like, Gallagher for this, he needs to start. But at the same time, Palmer, started 3, we won all 3. He's been phenomenal as well, playing right there, right? Yeah. And with both Raheem and, of course, Mudryk being in form and just stretching their fullbacks, it would be really, really good. It's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one, and even Noni, as you mentioned, I forgot that he's even in our squad anymore. It'll be good for us to have those players that run, cut in, and shoot. Right? Obviously, for that, preferably a left footer. So Noni would make sense for something like that, because Mudryk, same thing, right on the right side. He was good for the game you mentioned, but crossing it to, who would he even cross it to, right? If you don't.
That's a good point. Unless you're crossing it to Sterling at the far post, really. But yeah, it's a good point.
And both Raheem and Mudryk on the left side, when they cut in and shoot, it's just, it's one of those things where I feel like it'll be dangerous the most. But I can definitely see your point of us playing a proper winger. However, I think the most likely outcome is for us to play Palmer there. I just think Poch is going to do that. Yeah. But I can definitely agree with playing like an out-and-out winger.
I hear you. And I'll stick with you for the other side as well. We'll get to striker at the very end. Where do you stand on... Now, I think most of us will agree that Poch is going to pick Sterling if he has to pick between Mudryk and Sterling. Especially after... I know Mudryk was obviously great during international... Well, I say great. Scored his first goal for Ukraine, and it was a great goal during international break. But obviously, Sterling had an absolute incredible game just before the international break. So it would be really... it wouldn't only be harsh, it would be ridiculous to drop Sterling, quite frankly. But... from a different perspective of looking at it, do you think it's a good thing for Mudryk to play against Arsenal? Is that something he needs, that almost extra pressure with the nearly moving to Arsenal, them being quite critical of him because it hasn't really worked out? Or do you think that's exactly the opposite and you kind of need to leave him out of it to protect him from that scenario?
That's a really good question, because psychologically, right, these things matter. The whole debate, going back to Torres when he first played against Liverpool. Yeah. His first game, everyone is like, what's going on? And now he's been vocal about it, saying maybe that wasn't the best call and all. But it's moments, right? It's moments that matter. And I feel like something like this, considering he's worked really hard and has been on track, was pretty unlucky to not to start last game, for us, because obviously he picked up a knock. And then Raheem goes and scores a hat-trick. So it's not like his confidence is low, he's doing bad. He's slowly building it up, has done well, and I think Sterling should start. However, Mudryk also needs minutes for this game. I think psychologically he's ready, though. But it's just unlucky that, healthy competition is good, and it's so unlucky for him that Sterling scored a hat-trick, right?
Yeah, literally. Let's just manifest this for a second, right? Imagine Sterling starts. Mudryk comes on, whether that's for Sterling or someone else. It's 1-1, 92nd minute. Mudryk does what he did against Malta. Imagine the scenes at the bridge, at home in your living rooms. Imagine the scenes if Mudryk scores the winner against Arsenal. I don't think we will have had a happier day since Porto. Honestly, it will be ridiculous.
My mistake, not a hat trick, but the thing.
Yeah, we get what you mean. Essentially, a hat trick.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's. I think Zinchenko mentioned it a few days ago, saying he'll slap him if Mudryk scores a goal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was the PG version now. Slap it.
And I feel like we need, like us Chelsea fans, we need that moment of a former player scoring the winner, right? We never get that. All these other teams have it, and something like that, it'll be written in the stars. But as long as he does well and we win, I'll be happy.
Exactly. Nice. We'll touch on the striker in a second. I mean, to be honest, if we don't have Jackson available, well, the conversation needs to change again anyway. Because then you're talking, are we playing Sterling up front anyway? And Mudryk needs to be on the wing. But we'll get to that in a second. In terms of the wingers, we have obviously discussed why we would, in an ideal world, like a right winger, an out-and-out winger, rather than Palmer, who comes inside and kind of, goes exactly where Zinchenko is anyway, rather than having to wait for Zinchenko to fill that position or that gap. But realistically, do you agree with Feroz that Poch will pick Palmer there?
Yeah, I think he will. I think it'll be Palmer and Sterling, if I had to predict.
What would you do, though?
Mudryk and Sterling, Palmer in midfield, or as a 10.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, you said. Okay, yeah. I hear that. I mean, it would still worry me a little bit in terms of, because they play midfield 3. I know Palmer can do that, and I disagree with the chat here. Sorry, saying Palmer doesn't have the work rate. I think if that's one thing Palmer has, is work rate.
Yeah, he has good work rate.
Exactly. Now, maybe not Gallagher levels of it, because Gallagher has one of the most insane work rates of any footballer. And maybe also, even if he is fit, Palmer did have a little muscle knock in the international break, so maybe that will also hinder his work rate a little bit. I don't know. But I don't know. Against Arsenal, I probably feel more comfortable if I have Gallagher in there. But that's obviously because I haven't seen Palmer play there, right, from the start of the game. We haven't seen that yet. So if I had, maybe I would have a different opinion. But from what I have seen, I think I just rather go with the Gallagher situation. And if I have Gallagher midfield, not playing Palmer, I'm not sure if that seems like the best idea. It all depends on what we discussed earlier, kind of going back all the way to it, when I asked you guys, how should we approach the game? Because if we sit a bit deeper, then I think it's no problem if you drop Palmer. Because if we're playing from deeper, Enzo can play those passes. You don't need Palmer then. And then you can play Sterling on one side, Mudryk on the other side, and you're flying. That's okay. But if we're not playing deeper, then I think you need Palmer, because otherwise there's no way we break them down. Oh, no way is harsh, but there's less likelihood of us breaking them down. So, yeah. Up front, though, I think I'm very confident Jackson is fine. I think this is a whole mind game situation of Poch where he says he needs to be assessed. I think there's a whole load of waffle. Like, the guy played before he had surgery. How is he going to not play after he had surgery? That would be a ridiculous surgery to have then. Surely then he should not have had surgery, no? Like, no, absolutely no chance. I watched Marko Arnautovic play with an actual cast on his hand for Austria. There's no way a hand injury is stopping you playing against Arsenal. Absolutely no chance. For me, Jackson plays, and that is not going to be an issue. I'm not sure if you guys agree, but that's how I view it.
No, I agree.
No, Rose, you spoke. I'll go with you guys. Go on.
No, I agree 100%. Jackson is going to play it, I think. I think a lot, even though I'm saying Reece, that's just me being super safe. I think all the players who are being assessed, I think all will play.
I agree they will play. I'm just not sure if he will start in terms of Reece.
Fair enough.
There you go. Paisto, do you agree that the whole Jackson thing is a bit of a... I mean, maybe it's not mind games. Maybe he's actually going to be assessed, but I think the assessment will result in him playing.
Yeah, I think Jackson will play. I think it's mind games as well. Like, nowhere hand injury stops him from playing. Like, he's had surgery on it. Like, he's going to be fine, I'm sure.
Exactly. Like I say, he will have bandages over it or whatever he will have, but he's going to be okay. Like we touched on, we're playing football here, right? Like, he doesn't need his hands. He's not a goalkeeper. Maybe he's less likely to ask for yellow cards if his hand hurts. You know what I mean? So maybe it's a positive. Sorry, Nicolas. I do apologize. So, boys, if this is our team, what do we reckon happens? Score predictions. I need it. Feroz, I'll go with you first. Do you think we can pull this off? You said earlier it's probably going to be a draw. Like I said, with the whole Poch hasn't lost to Arsenal, but Arsenal haven't lost London derbies. Has he gotten draw written all over it? Or do you think we can nick it? Or will we sit here all positive and then lose anyway?
I think if this is our team and we have a decent referee, because that's really important right now.
Well, the guy
That's
on VAR is the guy that sent off Gusto, so it's going to be
Exactly.
great.
Now, like if this our team and the officials are sane for once, I think we can sneak a 2-1 win. Knock on wood.
I back it all the way to the bank, mate. Because now I do like a score predictor game for like every Premier League game with like a group of people. And in that, I will be honest, I said 1-1 Chelsea Arsenal because, well, you have to go for the points in this. I don't want to lose, do I? And I feel like it's still the most likely.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to back Feroza's, prediction all the way to the bank, honestly. Like, I'm probably going to say 2-1 as well, as boring as that may be. Pies, are you going to go along with us, or you're going to bring us back down to reality?
I'm going to go 3-1 Arsenal.
3-1? My days. We haven't conceded 3 goals all season, have we?
I don't know, man.
Against West Ham we have. Bloody, of course we have. Flipping out.
Yeah. My optimistic prediction is 1-1. Reality prediction is 3-1 Arsenal.
Fair enough. Well, let's hope the team are a bit more positive than Pisces.
Please prove me wrong, Chelsea. I have no hope.
Yeah. Hey, I also get it, honestly. But yeah, I'm going to go with Feroza's 2-1. And I do want to discuss one last thing before we round this stream out here. And I kind of wanted to touch on it earlier, and I forgot. Wolves versus Chelsea could be played on Christmas Eve. It's been earmarked as a real possibility. Now, this is not set in stone yet. It might not happen. And I understand that a lot of English fans, maybe even American fans, even though time zones may change that again, don't care because, they celebrate Christmas. You celebrate Christmas on Christmas morning, Christmas Day. But in a lot of other places in the world, including where I'm from, we celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. How about we do not have Chelsea on at the same time? I would like to spend time with my family and not have to, by the way, I need to watch Chelsea now. Do you know what I mean? But also, I don't want to miss a game, right? So can we please not do that? I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think this is a whole mess. Why are we playing Christmas Eve? Like, I don't know, Feroz, how you view this as being in America. I don't know with how the time zones affect it as well, if it's on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, no. I just think this is not a good idea. Obviously, the players will not be happy about it. And it's just one of those things like, why? Why are we complicating more things? There's no need for it,
Yeah.
So
I think the pure reason is, okay, then they can have an extra game on TV rather than on Boxing Day, all of them at the same time. I think that's why they're doing it. But
yeah, no, it's a silly idea.
No, imagine like the away fans, right? Like, take even the teams out of it. Like the teams, okay, they play Boxing Day anyway. For them, I don't think it makes that much of a difference, depending on where they're from, because a lot of cultures obviously celebrate the evening. So they're like, celebrate the evening, go back to training on the 25th. But for the away fans, imagine having to go up to Wolverhampton from London on Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve is not going to be an afternoon game, is it? Or a midday game. It's probably going to be like 5 o'clock, maybe later. So when are you going to get back? Are you going to get back? Is everyone going to have to celebrate Christmas in bloody Wolverhampton? It's a bit of a mess of an idea. Like, I understand what you said, Pies, in terms of you don't mind. Musa said as well, don't mind. If you don't celebrate in the evening and you have nothing on anyway, and you're going to have an enjoyable Christmas Eve. But just imagine, Pies, for a second, we lose that game. Your whole Christmas will be ruined.
Oh, yes.
Your whole Christmas will literally be ruined.
Yeah, until you get Christmas dinner on the table and then you're like momentarily happy for like 15 minutes.
Christmas dinner for you is like a whole 24 hours after this game would be. So that you're miserable for a whole 24 hours before that.
I think the main thing is, like, as Fro said, the players will hate it. Like, it will be such a shit game, I guarantee you. And also, why are they doing this? Like, this guy, apparently, this will be the first time if it's done in like 25 years. Like, why?
1995. Why did we do it in 1995 either? I don't get that. But anyway.
Like, just why? I have so many questions.
So silly.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Exactly. But like Cranky Pan said, one reason money, even if you spell money weird, but yeah, money. It's as simple as that. I'm not a fan of it, but at the end of the day, since when do the Premier League or anybody in terms of fixture making care about what fans, players, or anyone else thinks, for that matter? But yeah, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time to wrap this one up. So please do check out my wonderful guests down in the description below. Feroz is Feroz17 on both Instagram and Twitter. Both are linked down in the description. Check him out over there. As well as Pice's website, londonsfirst.com. Of course, check that out. As well as his Twitter. I keep saying this. The likelihood that you are here and don't follow Pice on Twitter, very slim. So, but maybe if there are a few of you, go and follow Pice on Twitter. We'd massively appreciate it. I say we because, well, I want Pice to get more followers. So, but also follow me. My socials are also down in the description, by the way. But of course, I haven't told you at all today. My bad, really. Subscribe if you haven't already. I will be massively appreciated. Hit that like button on the way out. Every new like helps. Every new subscriber helps. It's just honestly how the YouTube algorithm works. The more interaction there is, as Twitter, really. The more interaction there is, the more it gets pushed. It gets pushed by the algorithm. So yeah, put your comments down. If you're watching this later on, once this stream has turned into a video, leave a comment down below. Leave your score predictions. Leave whatever you think is going to happen in the game. Leave your comments down below. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Feroz. Thank you, Pice.
I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.